all about the story of Max Factor, a barbershop in St. Louis. Unfortunately, he was not making a lot of money on it, so he ended up moving out to LA in 1908. By January of 1909, he had opened Max Factor & Company. It was a barbershop and a hair store combined. In 1912, he was at another location where he would sell different toupees and hair pieces. By 1913, he closed the barbershop and was only registered as a seller of hair products. Cecilia B. DeMille rented some wigs from Max Factor for an upcoming movie he was doing. He also sold what was called Supreme brand products, which included henna shampoo, liquid white rouge face powder, eye makeup, cleansing cream, and lip rouge. Now in 1914, he saw a motion picture for the first time. The stage grease paint, he said, was terrifying because the products that they were using at that time, they would be heavy on the actress and almost like a mask. And so as they were talking, any emotion would show creases and start to crack. So he thought they needed something more flexible, that could move with the person's expressions and as she talked. In 1914, he created the flexible grease paint. It combined vegetable oils and was a cream rather than a stick. And so more and more film professionals started coming into his shop asking for this product, and he really started making a name for himself in the film industry. In 1915 is when Hollywood became the hub for the film industry, and even though he had started the grease paint in 1914, it wasn't officially rolled out for everyone to purchase until 1923. In 1917, a Max Factor company brochure, as you can see, it still was talking mostly about wigs and toupees using hair that was imported from Europe versus makeup. In 1918, he introduced the color harmony principle of makeup. It was makeup shades were coordinated to complement a woman's natural complexion, eye, and hair coloring. So kind of like finding your right shade for your skin tone, things that we still apply today with makeup. In the 1920s, studios started to actually have a makeup department where they would have a makeup artist right on set. And by 1922, Factor was now referring to his location as the House of Makeup. In 1927, Max Factor launched its Society line. It was developed as a generic cosmetic line that could be distributed throughout the U.S. In 1928, at the Warner Brothers studio, they started experimenting with different lights, cameras. Max Factor, he had a lab on site, and he continued to explore and experiment to make sure that the products were keeping up with any changes in film and lighting. In 1929, he received an Oscar for makeup. And then in 1929, we had the Great Depression. So of course, the industry, the cosmetics, people purchasing, all took a hit. And of course, sales started to decline. But he kept going. And then in 1932, he invented this device that was said to measure the perfect face of what would be like your perfect alignment. Look at this, called the beauty calibrator. It was supposed to measure how far a person's features differ from their ideal face. So the idea was to know how it differed, then you could play with the makeup to try to make the person's face look more, the ideal beauty, kind of like contouring and highlighting that. This device used screws to press in the flexible metal bands against the contours of the head, and then the facial features could be measured. Can you imagine putting that contraption on your face? I mean, I guess we put a lot of contraptions still on our face, right, for beauty. By 1933, Max Factor claimed that 96% of all studios in the world were using Max Factor cosmetics. Some studios in Hollywood hired their actresses to market Max Factor products. In exchange, they would receive $1 for promoting the product. So it was a win-win. He was getting his makeup promoted, and the actress was getting her new film coming out being promoted. Mid-30s, he was also getting into TV production and wanting to have his makeup used on those sets as well as the movie sets. Pancake makeup is developed because they were using now Technicolor film, and without some corrective makeup, with this new film, the actors' faces appeared to be brick red or blue. In 1938, sadly, Max Factor did die. The company was then passed on to sons. Now, Frank Factor, he actually changed his name legally to be Max Factor Jr. In 1939, developed a kissing machine, and this was used to test the True Color lipsticks. This kissing machine replaces human kisses, and it applied pressure to artificially kissing lips covered with the lipstick to measure how much pressure in kissing the lipstick could actually withstand and still remain on the lips. In the 1940s, we had World War II, and the brand even was making some camouflage makeup for the U.S. Marines Corps. A pan stick cream makeup type makeup in the unique stick form, it was developed, and it was made to be like a lipstick where you could just, twist up, and the thought process was then it can be used not only on the person's face, but on their legs and arms as well. By the way, I did not introduce myself, did I? No. Hello, my name is Stacy. This is stacileabeauty, and I love trivia, learning about things and beauty, skincare, fashion, makeup. So every other week I am putting out a video like this where I'm going to be talking about the story of a certain brand. In 1946, the British Board of Trade, they released over 300 factories that used to be doing stuff for the war. So Max Factor, he got one of these factories. On factory number 1, this is where they manufactured wet cosmetics. So it was cleansing cream, skincare, face lotions, foundation, lipsticks, and that kind of thing. And in this location, over 280,000 cosmetics were produced in 1 month. Also had the assembly room. Cosmetics were packaged. Most of the work was done by hand. And in the lipstick room, even though the majority of it was done in hand, they could still produce up to 12,000 lipsticks a day. Then the factory number 2 building is where they manufactured the dry products. Your face powders, the pancake makeup. They were measured out in special rooms at one end of the factory. There was the rouge press room, where they had an automatic press that would make 6 cakes of rouge at each press. They were also exporting products at this time, because this was overseas that this factory was, so up to 12,000 boxes of face powder. Okay, these numbers are per day of what was exported. And remember, this was back in the late 40s. So per day, factory number 2 could produce up to 12,000 boxes of face powder, 90,000 rouge compacts, and 140,000 compacts of pancake per day. In 1950s, we saw TV commercials being used and them leaning heavier into lipstick, because at this time there was other lipsticks companies as Hazel Bishop and Revlon, taking some of the market share. In 1953, the cream puff makeup, and this was the first all-in-one blend of a creamy makeup base and powder. You applied it with a puff. The cream puff was applied like a powder but stayed on like a cream. In 1955, we saw the launch of Hi-Fi fluid makeup. And this makeup was produced as a result of research for Max Factor products being used in television. The Hi-Fi range featured bright colors for cheeks, lips, and eyes, and was created to give a glowing look. 1961, they went public and traded on the New York Stock Exchange. And here's just a little tidbit I thought was funny interesting because I'm in Illinois, and I did not know this. In 1962, they ran a Midwest distribution center. It was constructed constructed in displays near O'Hare. So I thought that was pretty cool. And in 1964, the Max Factor Regency Thin Line Compacts were released, and I just so happen to have one here I found online. This is the Cream Puff. So this was the makeup that was a cross between powder and liquid. And whoever had this before did use quite a bit. Here's what the powder puff looked like. And there definitely is a scent to this. Ooh, it kind of reminds me of Coty powder is what that scent makes me think of. But yeah, it is a very slim powder. Had their name and color on the back, and then just a pretty pattern. So yeah. And then over the years, they had different shampoos that they did. Really got into nail polishes, men's lines, fragrances. So they just really expanded over the years. In 1991, they were sold to Procter & Gamble for more than $1 billion, right? Yeah, $1 billion. And the offices were moved from California to Cincinnati. Now in 1988, Procter & Gamble had also bought CoverGirl. And then in 2001, I guess the Max Factor numbers weren't as high as CoverGirl numbers. So Procter & Gamble decided to not focus on the Max Factor. They moved all of their focus onto the CoverGirl brand. In 2016, Coty, they purchased both Max Factor and CoverGirl from Procter & Gamble. At that time, that resulted in a resurgence of Max Factor because here, they bought it. So of course they want to focus on getting some numbers, getting products sold for that label. The brand is not cruelty free. You can still purchase Max Factor makeup. If you go to the Max Factor website, they do give you some different places that you can purchase it. However, all of those locations that are listed are in the UK. And I have seen online that people in Scotland have said that they can buy it. In some of the Middle Eastern countries, they've said that they can purchase it. I've seen online. The only place that I can find in the US that we can purchase it is on Amazon. So I was going to buy some products, show you kind of how they wear and stuff. There's a lot to choose from, and I didn't want to just, be purchasing and wasting a lot of product. So I wanted to put this video out, get your feedback, like how you're liking it. If you're interested in seeing how Max Factor makeup today applies, then I will order some and do a separate video. If you could let me know down in the description box, just say yes, Max Factor product review, or no, I've learned enough about Max Factor. I didn't really find anything about like their sustainability or anything like that. If you are not new here, you already know this fact. If you are new here and you stayed until this point, I love looking at vintage magazine ads. I feel like, well, I actually have. Like the other night I was scrolling through Pinterest and online, and the next thing I know, it was 3:30 in the morning, and I was like, I gotta get to bed. But you can just scroll and you know how it goes. But so let me put up some more ads and Max Factor booklets that I found over the years. Yeah, hopefully you will enjoy that. At the end of the slideshow, I will pop up on the screen the story of previous brand stories if you want to watch those next.